Do we need a motion to be ready for the live feed?
So it is, I should check what's today's date?
27th?
All right, it's February 27th. It's 4:47, and we're beginning our Trails Committee. We have a quorum today, so I would like a call to order for the Milton Trails Advisory Committee for Thursday, February 27th. Can I have a,
Yep, make a motion to call to order.
can I have a motion to call?
Motion to call.
Can I have a second?
Yes. Motion.
All right, I'm going to begin with the roll call here. Brian Maloney,
Here.
Phil Van Gelder,
Here.
Keisha Asher,
Here.
John Lunston, not present. Thomas Oliver,
Here.
Suzanne Bach, I am here, and Neil Papavis.
Here.
I hope I said that right.
Almost. Close.
All right, we're going to rise now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our next item is our approval of our meeting agenda. Can I have a motion to approve today's meeting?
I'll motion to accept today's agenda.
Thank you, Phil. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Keisha.
Minutes.
Yes, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to move on to our next item. Rob, do we have a copy of today's agenda or?
No.
Okay, all right.
I have it on my screen.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think the next item was our past meeting. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so can I have an approval of the past meeting minutes? Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at it.
Yes. Let's pause. Is anyone still looking for IT help for phones? Sorry. Keep going.
So, okay,
I will motion to accept the minutes from the January 23rd meeting.
all right. Thank you, Phil. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we're approved. I got to turn on my computer.
On the bottom right
I'm
corner.
like that, the technical IT.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. All right, do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we can move on. So next we are going to move on the city staff, our unfinished business, city staff updates and other committee discussion.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending. We've got a full house, missing one tonight. We've got a packed agenda, so I'm going to try and get through everything relatively quickly and get you out on time. Before I start the city staff updates and other committee discussion, I thought it would be appropriate to introduce our new board member and allow him to say whatever he'd like in front of our other volunteers. Neil, we're lucky to have you and appreciate you giving your time to advance the cause. And anything you'd like to share about you or your family or why you're here.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to working with everyone up here. And my wife and two kids, we've moved out here about 4 years ago, and I've loved every second of it. So,
Where do you live?
we live right next to Summit Hill in a neighborhood, Crabapple Brook right now, and we're actually tomorrow I'm buying a farm off of Freemanville. So
Exciting.
yeah, got some changes coming up, but we're pretty excited.
Awesome.
Well, welcome,
Yeah.
and welcome to Milton, and welcome to our committee.
Thank you.
All right.
So first update under unfinished business, I wanted to show you the tentative calendar for the rest of 2025. Probably should have done this last month, but I wasn't prepared. So if we stick to the fourth Thursday of every month, you'll see that's how it falls for the rest of the year. I stuck with, I think last year we had either 7 or 8 meetings during the year. So there are a couple of months that you see we've skipped. Respecting, obviously we have one we're skipping June. We're meeting in July and August. Sometimes that's a little bit of a challenge with summer vacations and things. And then the only other edit to the fourth Thursday approach was November. So in November, fourth Thursday falls on Thanksgiving. I'm suggesting we either do the Thursday before that or the Thursday after that as our last meeting of the year.
Do we need to decide today, or is that something we should wait till we
If
get
you're
closer?
comfortable with locking this in today, we can. If you want to look at your respective calendars and we can lock it in at the March meeting, that's fine too.
I'll leave it up to committee for some advisement.
I can lock something in.
Yeah, we can lock it in.
Also keep in mind, and this is the way we've kind of operated for the past couple of years, if something comes up, if we get into our July or August meeting and we realize we won't have a quorum, we can always decide to either reschedule to the next month or shift as appropriate.
I can do the 20th or the 4th, either.
Yeah, the 20th is probably better for me.
Okay.
The 4th is my birthday, so if we do that, will y'all bring me a cake?
We
Yeah, for the
20th.
can do that.
Better for you.
20th probably works.
This is exactly where you want to be on your birthday.
The 20th works for me too.
Sounds like you've got a,
I'm good either. So I think we'll keep the 20th, please.
Okay.
Get your.
And then we'll go ahead and we'll update the website. So we'll put these on the calendar moving forward into 2025 and make changes as needed, again, if something comes up. Second item under city staff updates and other committee discussion. Suzanne, you wanted to kind of update us on the meeting either from yesterday or the day before
Yes.
on the Deerfield plan.
Yes, so I've had 2 meetings in the past week and a half. The first one was with Councilman Phil, and we talked with the Orkin kids. They showed up, and we talked about trails kind of thing, and to find out just, where we could go from, wanted their input in terms of where we should be going in the Deerfield. So I had another meeting, then we called a meeting with the city staff. So Councilman Phil and myself, Sarah, Bob, Steve, Tracy, we got together regarding specifically around Deerfield, but then also there's a little bit of trails things. And there's some things I'd like to bring back from that meeting. The first thing was we talked about having a layered map. So we can really see and present it to the public what exactly we're interested in doing around the Deerfield area. So the first thing would be like to have a layer of public trails. So we can see all, to your point earlier, like be able to really see what's going on and what we would like to bring to the community. The second one would be like a developer trail. So we can see where the developers are what they're pulling into the trails. And then the third thing was the residential trails. And it's good to have this because it's a tangible item for us to be able to really kind of see what's going on and where we could put our mark on trails. And then also for the public to kind of promote. So that was one thing that city is going to help us with to try to figure out, how we have this like layered so we can get an overview of the whole trail system prior to beginning work and stuff like that. So that was the first thing on the agenda that we talked about. The second thing I'd like to bring your attention to is on council meeting on February 10th, there was some really interesting, if you have a chance to check the YouTube video, there was interesting, and I don't know if it's something, it's like at minute 30, around minute 30, there's a video of different trails that they put together that you can actually see what the developers were thinking and the city and the working through to kind of see what the trails would look like. So we will have some input into, branding it and stuff like that. Colors, material, colors of shrubs and greenery and artwork and all those other things. So if you have a chance to look at that February 10th meeting, it's around the 30-minute mark. You can kind of look and see and get a sense of what the trails will look like.
Who made the video?
I'm not sure.
Or the consultant team that's working on the Deerfield
Okay.
plan.
Yeah. So that's so that I want to encourage you to do that.
So was there any discussion of trail surface?
So that's the other point I want for us.
Sorry, I didn't mean
No,
that.
no.
Okay.
That's fine. So how we can help is really the branding, trail surface, trailheads. Talk about type of planters we want. How do we want to market this? What do we want? How do we want to name it? What artwork, or I even thought like music, if we could have, so one of the thoughts that I was thinking was we could have maybe some artwork with local artists, and you can find information about the artist there. What happens if also there's the QR codes you can lock in, and maybe we can work with local musicians and we can feature their art, their music, and that way we can really bring the community back into these spaces and stuff. So these are just creative things. I don't know the feasibility or how hard it is to do, but things that we can make this whole space our own. So I do have one of the things I do have kind of, I want each of the community members to kind of think about, like, what do you want to see? Where have you been and what kind of trails have you been on that you like, oh, I really like this. If you see it, take a picture, bring it back to the committee so we can start thinking about how we want to brand this. Even I'm thinking back to a trip that I went to in Boise, Idaho, along the river. It was really cool. There was a nice little garden that was over, like there were destinations. You walk along the river and you see people floating down the river, but then there was destinations to a little garden, or you had, restaurants and things like that. And that'll all help to kind of bring it all together. And I really like that. So if you go places, take pictures, look it up online, come back and start thinking about what we can do. How the city is going to help us is that you guys have also paid for some branding information from consultants. So we talked about at this meeting, I guess Steve was going to collect and get the information to us, so that way we can see what colors you guys have, what sort of images would be good to brand, and what would the trailheads look like? So that way it can help us to make the decision. They did a lot of heavy lifting. So, and I think also paid a lot of money for this. So we'll take on that expertise, and then we can kind of refine and say, we like this, we don't like this, and we can modify it to make it our own. So, so that was mostly what we talked about. We did also talk about one other item that I would like to bring up, and that was about in general, like, I know there's some gaps around trails where I guess the city's trying to fill in and trying to make it a continuous loop so we can be connected all throughout the city of Milton. And as far as I know, the appropriations are there for a lot of these projects, but I guess you guys are down a city worker. So Phil was mentioning to us that he would like to see these gaps kind of filled. So I guess from the committee, for us, we want to know how we can help you to, like,
Prioritize those.
or do whatever,
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
prioritize that, or whatever we need to do to help you so we can get, that moving throughout the city. So you can just, think about it and let us know if we have to, what we need to work on, so we can help fill in those gaps and get the projects moving. So
two quick things from my end. First, I was going to say what Brian just said. I'm not prepared to talk about it tonight.
Mhm.
Hopefully in March, if not May, it would be very helpful for us, given that we have a significant amount of gaps around the city. It's a very difficult process for us to say, this segment makes more, this segment makes more sense than this segment. This is $2 million. This is $200,000. Trying to make those choices is difficult, given that they all have that they all have benefits, and they're all likely supported by the quarter mile to half mile radius that is most closest subdivision to that segment that would therefore be using it. Sarah and I will try to, if not March, then May, have an item here where we can start talking about which segments make more sense than others to start filling. The other thing I wanted to clarify, so in the layered map for sidewalks, we talked about public, we talked about developer, we talked about residential. all three of those trails are still going to be publicly accessible. So that's not as if the public trails are open to the public and there's going to be a gate to get onto the private property. They're going to all work seamlessly. The private kind of developer and residential is kind of more of a scale on maybe how wide they are and who's ultimately going to be delivering it. One of the themes that's coming out of the Deerfield plan is there a way to incentivize and have developments, primarily in the Deerfield area, build some of these developer connection trails for us that we're then tying into. They'll be publicly accessible. They just won't be paid for through the city.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, because I know I didn't mention, it sounded public versus development, and it's all accessible. It's just who's going to provide the trails, right?
Correct.
All right.
For that 3-layer map you talked about, is that going to be digital? Could I like select which map I want to see or which overlays I'd like to have?
The first I've heard of the layered map was tonight, so I'm not
You're not prepared?
sure. I'll find out. I'm not sure if that's currently in the works by Bob and his team that's leading the Deerfield plan, and something that we're going to have at our next meeting. In my head, I was envisioning a PDF. I'm not sure if it's going to be interactive and whether you're going to be able to turn on the layers or not. I'm not sure.
I think something we talked about is really how are we going to get the Milton residents buy into and be excited for this whole project that's going on there. So anything deliverable, tangible that they can see, oh, this is what it's going to look like, how exciting it's going to benefit and raise my home value because it looks so pretty, and this place accessible to walk around, and it's going to tie into the whole loop around Milton. I think that's what we're looking for, something that it was thrown out, can we have a video just kind of similar to the video that's out there, but I think the 3-layer map was one of the things that we talked about. In what form, I'm not quite sure. That would be up to you guys to decide what's the best way to create it.
One of the most common complaints and negatives that we as staff hear about trails is the concern about people walking in my front yard and the hit on property value. So anything that we can do to push the tide against that and sell it and do a presentation in a way that explains to people, no, this will actually help you and here's why, and show them pictures and give them examples of properties that have access to the Big Creek Greenway and initially was not a fan of it, and then realized their property values skyrocketed and they're now marketing stuff around access to the Big Creek Greenway. We want to do the same thing with our network.
One thing, there's so many events, because I have 2 little kids, I'm constantly going to this green space out here for any sort of crabapple sanctioned event. It may help also to look at some of those events throughout the year. And I don't know if we have put up a tent or something where residents could come around and ask questions, and we could have, if this map becomes this layered map becomes a thing, and we could have a printout, and there'd be people there that are able to help answer questions and bring awareness. Because I think, to your question earlier, if they don't have the answers, they're going to make their own assumptions, right? And that creates uncertainty. And so I think if it's obviously a positive, and I travel a lot, and I've been to plenty of cities similar to the size to Milton that have very amazing trail systems, and it truly does totally change the city for the better. So, but a lot of that is just getting people on board, getting them familiar with what the overall plan is. And I think that's probably a good idea.
And I also, to your point, I think that's a great idea. Even at the farmer's market, we could have, I know there's a stand here, and maybe we can kind of promote it. The other thing is, if we can get some active engagement in choosing, maybe. So kind of like you did before when we had the survey, do you like this look better versus this look? So if we can get together and have ideas of, okay, we like this and we like this, well, let's let the public decide which of the two do they like better. And then the more the people feel like they have a say in the matter, the more they're going to be excited for the project and welcoming of it. So, Because yeah, we would really, I think it's a huge benefit, and it's our time to shine, right? Like, we're the Trails Committee, so let's make it look good.
It might be nice to have something even in front of this building where so many people are walking by. This is the city hall, just something of, hey, here's our plans. Here's what it's going to look like
To-
in their
To
areas.
Neil's point, there are a lot, besides the Crabapple Fest that everyone thinks of first, there are a lot of smaller events around Crabapple scattered around the city, people walking here, getting a simple brochure in the lobby for people to walk in and paying their business taxes. Things like that would be very easy for us, that once we have a package put together to
Yeah.
start spreading the
I
word.
don't necessarily think Crabapple Fest would probably be like the best format for that, because
I
it's
agree.
so
There's so
busy.
much else
Yeah.
going on there.
But like I mean, they'll, even when they do like movie on the green nights, and there's,
Put the
they
map
have a
on the
really good,
projector.
well, they have a really good turnout, and it's mostly residents. It's not drawing from all the,
Right.
the neighboring areas. So I think that that would be something that, because I know, like, obviously I've just joined, but even when I was going through the survey and looking at the existing map with the 2017 plans and like what we're looking at changing moving forward, it was really hard for me to determine what's existing versus what was part of that plan but not yet developed,
Correct.
versus like where we want. And so, I spend a lot of time riding my bike and walking and running throughout Milton. And some of these I looked on there, I was like, does this exist? How have I missed this for the last 4 years? And if it doesn't, it truly would, because right now we don't really have anything that's connecting like one area to the other, because you are going to have gaps, at least that I've found. And so, I mean, kind of going back to like prioritizing, we have a lot of focus going on in Deerfield, and that's great, but prioritizing, like, let's at least if we could get one decent size loop that then can connect to bigger loops down the road. I think that the residents would all of a sudden start to utilize that more and be like, wow, this is actually a huge benefit. And then all of a sudden, they're fully supporting the expansion of, trails all throughout the city.
Yeah, I think simultaneously we have to focus on, like you said, around the city of Milton, prioritizing that, because there's money appropriated for that. And, once we have the extra person who I guess fills in Emily's spot that left, we can hit the ground running of getting these things filled in. And then also the Deerfield project, which is going to be kind of moved on. I think I was told June is really when things could start.
The current schedule is they're hoping for adoption and kind of codification of things in June.
Yeah, so we have kind of a short timeline to think of where we want to go with the trails and stuff like that. So,
So Suzanne,
Yes.
related to branding,
yes.
that's my next item.
Yep.
So without not a lot of warning,
Uh-huh.
I spoke with Sarah literally 20 minutes ago. I was able to bring you, and I don't have printouts of this. It's also way too large to email to you yet,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'll find a way to provide each of you this document that I'm showing you. This is the product of that branding study that Suzanne
Oh.
just mentioned, that the
Great.
consultant team put together. It was completed, I want to say late last year, maybe September, October. So these were some recommendations. Company is Arnett Muldrow. Here where my cursor is, you can see. I'm not going to stop on every page here, but you can see generally what they were proposing related to everything related in the city. Colors, font. This is a lot bigger than just the trail discussion, but everything related to that branding world. If any of you, this is your wheelhouse, if this is something that you're into in your professional environment and want to kind of lead this, that would be great. If this is important enough that you think the entire committee really wants to dive into this, Suzanne, over the next 2 or 3 months, then that's great too.
I think this is going to be a priority for us, because I think everything is going to circle around the branding. How do we want it to look? How do we want the trailheads to be? What colors do we want to use? What color for the landscaping? How can we make this area feel like Milton, even though it's in a more commercial area? So I think branding is going to be a priority. And if we can pick out these things of what we like and what we don't like, then we can, like I said, get hopefully buy-in from the community and get people excited about the project. So I feel like this is going to be a priority. Does anybody else have any comments?
Is
Agree 100%.
this form you just showed us like in its infancy and the city's trying to figure out what they want out of these options? Or is this, hey, we've picked this font, these colors, and this is the palette, and pick any of them?
So I'm going to lean on Suzanne because she was in the meeting where they talked about branding related to Deerfield. I'll read you what Sarah's question to me was. Can you find a way to share the branding toolkit with MTAC and get their feedback?
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit just kind of informal on what do you think, and then the bigger picture is what we do with it over the next 2 or 3 months, tying into what Bob is working on the Deerfield effort.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was more of, I asked, do we have colors? Do we have things so we can really, figure out branding? And that's when I think Steve or Sarah said, I don't remember which one, we had a consultant. We spent a lot of money on this. So we can use that tools to give us the starting point and the jumping off point to kind of bring everything together.
And this is completed work. So it's more along the lines of, this is what we paid for. This was the product. Now, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to start rolling it out? Obviously, we can't change every sign with a magic wand, but what do we want to focus on? How can we use this to tie into the trail work with the Deerfield plan?
The other thing to think about is if we can, Bob mentioned this about naming, like we have the Alpha Loop, right? Can we think of a name for this area to kind of like say, hey, we're presenting? And I threw out, because again, I keep coming back to the Milton is horse community, equestrian. You see the symbol is Milton, is the horse. So I was thinking, and this is just, I just threw it. I was thinking, the Milton Derby or something like related to horse or something like that. But if we can think of some sort of naming or something for the project, or I don't know, it's Deerfield area, so we can think of something that's to that effect. But something to name it, then we can call it, and just having that name attached to it might generate excitement. So.
Yeah, no, I love the connection to the horse, and you could go types of horses,
Yep.
the thoroughbred loop,
Mm-hmm.
We've got a hill, so maybe the Clydesdale, so the slow loop.
I think that the connection to the horse, we just need to figure out a way to do it. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's what we're known for.
Yeah.
5 years ago, nobody knew what the Alpha Loop was. Now they do.
I think the other thing that kind of going back to, you can almost make it like an interactive trail system that people can utilize, right? And have it somewhat educational too. I know that, I think it's Summit, either Brittle or something, maybe on Brittle, you'll have plaques outside of certain properties and they'll go through the history. And like Milton's not that old, right? But there's still a lot of history to everything where Milton is now. And I think maybe coming up with some of that and having these sort of plaques throughout the trail system, it keeps everyone engaged. It's informative.
Exactly.
It's an opportunity to stop with my kids and read a sign to them. They would love, children would love different equestrian or horse named loops that they could, hey, I want to go do I don't know anything about horses.
Neither do I.
You're buying a farm tomorrow. You're gonna
And it
learn.
comes with 2 donkeys. I'm in hardcore donkey 101 right now. But no, I think that the more interactive that we can make it, and I think branding is obviously critical too, because if you get the buy-in and ownership of the residents, then and get the utilization, and then they're going to be pride associated with that. So,
And I want to take one step further. I agree with the plaques. I also would like to adapt, and I don't know how to do this because I'm not that tech savvy, but I would like to have a tie-in where you can just take a QR code and then have audio of whatever is information about whatever they're looking at. So that way we can get the younger generation into using your phones.
So that kind of stuff is available in Boston, like on the Freedom Trail.
Oh yeah.
As you're walking, you can have audio guided tours, and it'll tell you history, it'll tell you stories. I think QR code is probably the way to go, because then you don't have to worry about refilling pamphlets,
Yeah.
changing updates.
Sure.
Everything remains live and at all trailheads, at all historical markers and whatnot. You have little placards, but the QR code allows it to be all digital and you can change it at any moment.
Yeah.
The Milton Historical Society we could partner with
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we should tap into them.
I agree. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Rob, a question for you on the branding idea. I was thinking the Deerfield opportunity seems like an obvious one. But if we had these visions of grandeur that there are, say, 42 places that we need to put new trailhead signage and there's going to be homogenization to what that looks like, is there like a marquee spot to come up with like the standard that we would use going forward? Realizing we're not going to do all 42 at one time, but this is going to be like the marquee of how everything's going to look, the standard going forward. Is there a spot you can think of, or would that be Deerfield as a part of that? I mean, you're talking years down the road when it's all done, you like unveil, hey, this is the standard of how every trailhead's going to look.
So I've only worked in Milton for 3 years, but when I've been talking with people, not just you, but employees and residents around the city of where we're currently using trails, usually the first one comes up as Birmingham Park. Evidently there's it's widely used. It's very popular. I would throw out Birmingham Park. I would throw out, to Brian's point, some of our gravel roads that are out there currently that are having some pretty good use, from low volume from a car end, but high volume from a walker and horse end.
Because I think that would be maybe a worthwhile field trip, is we all meet at where we think that marquee spot would be, get a good image of what it looks like today, and that becomes kind of our project, is like, if this was a blank slate, what would we want the standardization of our messaging and marketing to be at any or every trailhead or whatnot, and start to design. So,
Okay.
but it's just a thought.
Yeah, no, I think it's a
And then
great
you start to
idea.
make that your blueprint, and you just start to, you don't have to worry about every spot, every trail and whatnot, just create one standard as this marketing packet's supposed to do, and we'll figure out the rest from.
Well, I think it's also important to have some signage, because some of these trails, I mean, you can live in Milton for a while and not even know about some of these gravel roads. And then all of a sudden you access them and you're like, I mean, on the weekends, they're packed. I'm on them every weekend, but it's the same people utilizing it.
Mhm.
And then I'll talk to other Milton residents and they don't even know about it, right? So I think some of this is going to be on some of the major, access points, some signage that they, all of a sudden, if you're in your car and you see it, you're going to be like, oh, there's something back here that we need to go and check out on, because like Birmingham Park, unless you know about it and you've actually been there, you don't really know how unique it is until you actually go and explore the property. Same thing with like Providence Park. It's not
Providence
that
Park is
big,
another one.
but and there's a tiny little sign right as you're driving by, but you really have to kind of look out for it. So I think branding would be really critical here, because if you see whatever the color is, a sign, that's, hey, there's a trail system around that you can access.
Yeah, I mean, even as you go through, Crabapple, you already have the big signs that say, this way, this that way. I mean, like this, the Milton branded signs. And even if you had something similar like that, and it was, Wood Road Trail, this way, or I mean, those would be, to your point, more than what we have now, and it just gives the trail importance. Like, hey, we're really pointing this thing out.
Like a park specific sign. So here are all of our trails. Here are all of our parks.
Right.
And you do have some of that, like walking up and down some of the gravel roads, there will be signs that I'm assuming the city put together that say, if you like where you're walking now, you need to go check out these other
Right.
areas. But they're kind of temporary, right? And they're not, you have to actually be on that trail before you even know about the others.
Yeah. And part of that came out, and I live on Wood, was to try to shift some of the traffic
Away, yeah.
over to some of the other, great resources the city has. And especially as we've acquired those, that is, I think, part of the goal. But love the historical signs, and I've pushed for that for Wood Road for a long time. Just, that road dates back to the 1800s, and
Yeah,
so it's
great
but
history.
people walk on this. Oh my gosh, it would be
Yes.
neat to know. I mean,
And that's probably like the best kept secret, I think, in Milton a little bit is
Yeah.
Wood Road, right? But I think as soon as you Because right now it's an out and back stretch, but as soon as that connects into other areas, I think you're going to see a lot of that utilization kind of spread out.
Well, but all you gotta do is you follow Phillips Circle up, you go all the way up to Summit and everything, so, I mean. But one of the things that, and I love the branding and consistency, I'd love to, help with any of that I can. The trail surface is gonna be really, really important. I know concrete's the longest lasting stuff, but for a trail, gosh, that's the hardest thing on the knees and stuff. And I think as a committee, we need to probably talk about that to help guide you guys with the projects. And certainly concrete will be appropriate. If you got concrete here, and we got a section, okay, that'll be concrete. But
We got a lot of really good response on that topic in the survey that we'll
Yeah.
get into a little bit. And I encourage all of you to kind of, if you want to parse through that Excel so you can see exactly what people are saying, because that question is important and not easy to answer.
Well, and a lot of it you don't want to take away from kind of the rural attributes of Milton as well. So if you all of a sudden just throw concrete everywhere,
yeah, we don't want that.
you
gonna
know,
look
live
bad.
forever.
I think through this committee, and even I think I know it was mentioned at some of the meetings. I think we've talked about that it would be specific to the area, so maybe we don't have to keep one type of like concrete all throughout our asphalt. So if there's one place that's maybe a little bit more rural and we want to keep it gravel, we can do that. If like to your point, if there's a concrete here and concrete here, we're obviously going to connect it with concrete there. But I think we have some flexibility in terms of we're not just going to put concrete everywhere. So
And the further away you get from, like, say, Crabapple, further away, I would think that would be a bit more rural, and then you would have.
and I think they're even
Different
talking
surface.
in the Deerfield area to have some back trails where we would have different surface that was not concrete. Even though the outside surface of it is concrete, we can have some trails that maybe have some different type of surface.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. There are going to be some opportunities as we're looking to try and connect point A to point B to have a trail that's more walking and horse friendly and another trail that's more golf cart bicycle friendly, and they may not be at the same location, and that's okay.
Mhm.
One may be longer than the other. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, didn't there, forgive me, I don't build trails or sidewalks, but it seems like you could use, there's a more cost-effective surface to utilize. And then if all of a sudden it's a highly used trail and it makes sense to then change it to a hard, paved surface of some sort. Because I would think that gravel or like hard packed gravel is significantly cheaper than concrete. And maybe that's a way to like start connecting some of these areas. And then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? This has got a lot of traffic on it. And there's a lot of kids on their bikes. It's hard to ride on gravel or strollers or whatever it may be. And we need to change the surface to this.
I agree, and I'll go one step further. Drive around town and see where you've got little dirt paths in the grass.
Mhm.
That's evidence of there's not even a sidewalk there, and people are already using it.
Mhm.
So those from us when we're looking at priorities, it's one of the factors that we use to say, I'm very confident that if I put a sidewalk there, people would use it.
And I think some of at least at the meeting, we were talking about the big loop around Milton. A lot of those gaps, the money's already been appropriated. So we, as a committee, will just need to decide which areas we want prioritized higher to fill in. So I think that money has been there already. So I think we already have like some sort of design or.
In March, I'll be giving you more information on what that money appropriated discussion looks like.
Yeah.
I'm just not as prepared as I should be on that.
No, that's okay.
And I do want to, again, point out, we've talked about this before. There may be money appropriated for, I'm thinking probably a segment or two that we can start looking at it. There's another opportunity next year in the spring when we start talking about C-SPLOS project lists for us to get a huge shot in the arm to the tune of $10 or $20 million. If we're prepared and know what our priorities are going to be, we're going to be able to feed that list into our council and into the public input that's going to be happening next spring.
Good.
There was also, we mentioned, I don't have it. We mentioned at the, a charity that's Path something,
Path Foundation.
Path Foundation, yes.
I'm very familiar with them.
Okay, so if for council that doesn't, or council, sorry, the committee that doesn't know, Path Foundation give out grants to do trails throughout Georgia. So that's another place where we
They're
can,
very successful in other cities around the metro area. It's competitive, so they're looked at as one of the leaders. You can't just go to them and expect money. But yes, they've been very successful in partnering with other cities to deliver high priorities and projects that the public wants.
so I guess for us, how, I know that we're kind of on a expedited, we want to do the branding. How do we, it's only a couple months before June hits us. We're almost, I just can't believe how quick time is going by. So how do you best think that we can go through? I like Phil's idea of maybe meeting and we can meet somewhere and see an example of signage or trailhead or,
So my recommendation,
yeah.
I'm going to provide you this
That would be helpful.
probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Take your time, look at it, see what you like, see what you don't like. At the same time, I'm going to be talking with Bob, and let's figure out a way to plug as many of you that are interested into what Deerfield's schedule looks like. And I don't have all the answers for you tonight on
Of
how
course.
that'll work, but I think what I don't want to have happen is to have us go off on a path and not be working with the amount of resources that Bob and his consultants and planning commission and everything is trying to push the Deerfield plan together over the next 3 months. I think there's some opportunities, just I need a little bit of time to figure it out.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, if everyone can go and just read through, fine, just say what you like, what you don't like, and we can hopefully come back and then figure out how to move forward.
I mean, we're clearly already utilizing, like there's branding all throughout the city right now, right?
Mhm.
So it just needs to be cohesive but unique so that you can quickly determine, hey, this is trail related versus downtown Crabapple, but they kind of need to dovetail together as well.
There was a lot of discussion on that topic when we were putting this document together. There is a lot of branding out there right now. You may not recognize, you may not even pick up as you're driving around. And the thought process was, do we want to go in a significantly different direction than our existing branding and incur a lot of costs to start taking things down and putting new things up? You'll see that the document here is not a 180 direction change from what we have. It's variations, it's different fonts, different colors that kind of complement what we already have.
Do you envision each area, each park or each area having a separate, like same logo, same thing, but separate color? Or do we want to keep that cohesive through all the parks and all the?
I like the cohesive look personally.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. If you choose one color for all the trails, then people are going to be able to, they're going to recognize that color and say, okay, this is part of the trail system. He brought up a point earlier. I was in Boston this morning, and like the Freedom Trail, it goes through the entire city, right? Well, the city's a busy city, but yet you can quickly identify like when you're on the trail and when you're not. I think that that's important. If you start changing the colors based off of what parts you're near, it could get somewhat lost, maybe. I think each park could have its own like branded color, but if it's a truly 50 years down the road and you've got trails all throughout the city, they're all connected, right? You should be able to, Atlanta did a good job with this with the Beltline as they're expanding the Beltline. Like there are certain things that you recognize once you start looking for them, you're like, oh, this is a Beltline access point.
Well, think of all the US national parks. Like you drive into them, they all have that same like funny wood-shaped sign and it's in yellow
Completely
font.
agree.
And as soon as you see it, you know what it is. Like,
I don't know if it's just because St. Patty's Day is coming up, but we could brand, with maybe color style like that. Flag of Ireland.
There you go.
okay, Maloney.
Do we have a flag for Milton or anything?
If we do, it's
Roll through
probably
this.
right behind you. I'm not 100% sure if that's an
It's the
official
logo.
flag or whether that's just our logo on a flag.
Okay.
But I mean, it could even be as some as like the city of Milton. with the
Seal,
horse,
like have the
that-
seal
that
on
seal,
everything.
You could have that seal
Yeah.
somewhere like on
Every
the
sign.
branding, right?
Yeah.
And then have it be a particular color. And then
Mhm.
they're going to immediately recognize that, and you're still in keeping with the horse theme. And
Sure.
I'll just bring it up because this has been a topic at City Hall. You'll notice that the horse on the seal is different than the horse on the screen.
Yeah.
Things like that.
We got a new horse. Oh, goodness.
So currently on some of the trails at some of the parks, is there any sort of logo? And if so, are they different? Are they same? Are they,
I should know the answer to that.
you
and
don't
I
know? Okay.
We actually looked at this like 2 years ago. I think Emily had some pictures of some of our trailheads. And on any given trailhead, there could be like 12 different signs, all different colors, all different designs, so this conversation is celebrating birthdays at this point. We never knew when something was going to change, but this was before we even worked on the map.
Yeah.
So there was conversation around it, but it sounded like it was more of a macro thing first.
I
And
also
this is-
think, if I remember right, that was related to a grant that we thought we were going after that we ended up not getting.
I believe so.
So it sounds like we might have to redo, once we decide what the trail, we have, to have it cohesive, we might have to redo some of the signage at some of these other places, right? Okay.
I think Birmingham Park, so a few years ago when I was helping with the Milton Land Conservancy, we went to Birmingham Park and this was back when they had, it looked like just a block with yellow paint on it, just to let you know you're on the trail. I haven't been there in a while, but I know that there's a cleanup coming up soon for Birmingham Park.
Mhm.
So there may be some visibility there where that would be a good place to start. With the signage, because I haven't seen the signage in a while, but I remember it was very minimal.
Just even the road signage for that park is so poor.
Right.
We've talked
Because you
about
think you're at
that
the
years
fire
ago. I
station,
mean,
right?
yeah,
Or the church there.
that's
so
I
very,
was-
very poorly marked.
I mean,
I was-
Providence Park's the same way too. You can,
it sneaks up
I
on
mean,
you.
it's almost like a street sign,
Mhm.
but
Well, you feel like you're going back into someone's,
Yeah.
like, their driveway.
Yeah, pulled into Phil's driveway.
Careful. Stay on the east side.
But the city's invested a lot of money in Birmingham Park, for example, like the dock and everything. So you want to make it
Yeah.
visible and
Yeah.
let everyone know that that's back there.
And it's already very popular even without that.
But I think too, as these trails start to come together, like the cleanup, I know I'm gonna take my kids to the Birmingham Park cleanup because I think that's a good opportunity for them to learn some like community service. But we could start to have more of those events along the trail systems and just, and it's gonna bring more people out that maybe haven't experienced or, hey, we're getting ready to open this trail system. Here's an early look. And just kind of see what the community involvement is.
And when you mention that, it also triggers my memory of at the meeting we had the other day about even having events once it is open. Can we have some sort of, like not a race, but
Fun run type deal,
yeah,
yeah.
something to promote it and to say, oh, we're going to do this. So yeah, so there's different ways that we can.
I mean, you get a ton of, like, my wife was involved in the witches ride the other year, and that's something that they took from Alabama that was really popular in Birmingham. And a group of, Milton residents got together and like, let's do a fun witches ride. And you dress up on bikes. I don't know if y'all experienced it at all. And it just took place down in downtown Crabapple, but the turnout was massive.
Was that like on Halloween
It was
or,
on, yeah,
or
it
the
was-
weekend
yeah,
after?
it was leading up to, it was either right before or right after, I think right before Halloween.
Yeah.
Like you dress up, the ladies dress up as witches, ride bikes around, throw candy out. But like, these roads were packed. And I think that, Milton residents are pretty quick. I mean, you got to have like some sort of themed event.
Yeah.
But if you did a fun run or a fun
Yeah.
walk or whatever, I think we'd be surprised at how many people actually turn out.
Suzanne, thanks for bringing all this to the committee.
Yeah,
I mean,
you did a
so
great job.
just to kind of put a bow on it, I'm hearing kind of 3 big buckets that we're in charge of that we need to make some progress on. So the way I look at it is sidewalks in general, not trails. And like these sidewalks that go nowhere, how do we connect them? How do we fix that? 2 is the trails. We spent some time talking about that, branding, trailheads, et cetera. And then the 3rd bucket that seems to have come up tonight is what do we do with this Deerfield development and how do we impact that? And maybe that has a little bit to do with the branding and all that. But I just, we don't have to do it now, but I just want to think about like, what are the next steps? Like, how do we move these things forward? Because it's so easy to get distracted by one and not do the other. And I don't know if this committee breaks up and these 2 people take Deerfield or we do it together, but.
Well, I think the prioritization, you said March or possibly May, and then we can work on that, right? Like we're waiting for some guidance from city.
So don't hold me on this, but the way I think this is going to happen is we'll need to work with whoever's interested in the Deerfield work kind of offline, just because we're limited to between now and June. We have a March meeting and a May meeting, that we try and stick the agenda and the focus here in the nightly meetings to finishing the blueprint changes, working through the prioritization process, because the Deerfield plan isn't even led by myself or Sarah or Public Works. It's important that I'm following Bob's lead and making sure that we're plugging into what they're doing and not delaying them and giving them the feedback and the input that they need to keep on their schedule. Probably offline, depending on, again, what their schedule looks like and how many of you are available and interested in pitching in and helping out on that.
Okay. I will definitely do that. It's right near where I live. So that is, so I will definitely be helping out with the Deerfield.
That's great. I want to be respectful of your time.
Oh, sorry.
It's 20 till 6 and I've got a lot of information about the survey. Do you want me to go through this tonight, or would you rather save it for March or look at some of the material that I've got for you offline? So what I did, you haven't seen this yet. The survey results for the blueprint map, I put together some summary information of that's what our response map looks like. I was pretty happy with seeing that coverage throughout the city with not a lot of clustering. I see a couple of clusters here for subdivisions that were pretty popular for us, but I thought I was very happy with the turnout, and some summary on the results. Which segments did they support? Which segments did they not support? Giving you some charts on how many people said yes or no. I can go through this tonight, or Suzanne, I can handle this whatever way you want.
Okay. I'm good to keep going. Whoever, just give your preference and, and then we can decide if we're going to table it for next month or if we should keep going.
Other than reviewing it, are there specific action items you need from us or decisions?
So one of my questions when I'm finished with it is, based on everything I just told you and your review of the data, is this something that you're confident that you want to stick to the map that I have currently on the screen, or do you want to take another month and consider the input, talk amongst yourselves, look at the data yourself offline, and make a motion to kind of lock in this map in March? That's completely up to you.
And what you have in this PowerPoint is a distillation of that Excel spreadsheet we
It's a
saw?
summary of that Excel sheet, along with some, I reviewed it today. I kind of took some of the comments that wasn't a clear yes or no, just people talking about what they liked. I wrote some of those down, and I wanted to read them just to kind of make sure you have a sense for the sense of the public and how they were responding to a couple of questions that couldn't be summarized in a graph or a number chart.
Is there a timeline in which you need response back?
This is absolutely your priority. The next action, once you're confident that you want to kind of lock in this map, is Sarah and I will need a couple of months to get it through the codification process and getting it through the council agenda. So that process will start whenever you're ready for it to start. There's no urgency on this other than it's something that we've been working together on as a committee for a very long time, and something we want to try and push across the finish line and move on to the next major activity.
Are there some salient things you'd point out to us that we could kind of do a combination of
So,
that tonight where we
sure.
touch on it a little bit, but then
How about a 10-minute?
like
10-minute Rob
Perfect.
summary, sure.
I'll start the
like,
timer.
Like I said, I was very happy with the coverage across the city. Every green dot was an address. Again, not everybody put in their address, but you can see we got a fairly 140 something responses and a pretty good dispersal geographically around the city. This was an interesting question. Which segments do you support? Brian, you'll be happy that the New Providence one rose to the top of the list. I was honestly surprised that Connection A scored as high as it did. There was a lot of sentiment about wanting to walk from Crossroads to Bell Memorial.
Sorry, this is,
And I think that's what
this is stuff that
drove
we're proposing to be put in.
A. Yes. So
Okay.
the pink lines on this map, A through J, correspond with the input here. So number 2 behind New Providence was that east-west connection at the top of the city. Again, to be honest with you, that's one of the segments that Sarah was a little bit concerned about us getting negative feedback on with her history in the city and the general sentiment that the farther north you go, you'll get a little bit more concern and opposition to sidewalks in their front yards. But again, according to the survey, Connection A scored very well. Lowest 2 positive responses were F and G. Those were the segments on the west side of the city, one on 140 Arnold Mill Road, and the other the spur off of Arnold Mill Road over to the Lackey Park at Lock Pawnee Preserve. Staff, I can kind of understand that, just because if you're envisioning a trail on the current Arnold Mill Road, I can understand why would anyone benefit from that. I do think it's important to look into the future and understand that GDOT's going to be widening Arnold Mill Road in the next 10 years. And when they do that, it would be nice as part of that project to have a trail. That's why, as from a staff perspective, we want to try and keep pushing.
Wasn't G aspirational in concert with either Woodstock or Roswell as well?
That was a different segment.
Was it?
G is completely us. G
Okay.
is a very short connection. It's either on Lackey or Sweet
That's
Apple
Lackey,
as just a spur off of 140 to get to the passive part. Doesn't involve Cherokee or
Okay.
anyone else. Which segments do you not support? Again, Arnold Mill Road and that Lock Pawnee connection rose to the top of the list. You will see that the numbers aren't high. Again, 140 responses, and we only had 11 people express not being happy with Connection F.
Which just means in general, people support trails.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Can you just go back to the ones that were
They
supported?
do support.
Oh, sorry.
The list, yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to take a moment to look at that. You can continue on and just.
I'll be providing you, in addition to the branding study, I'll be providing you this PowerPoint deck afterwards. So
That'd be great.
Yeah.
You can review it.
Cool.
Moving on. It was hard to summarize that question. I encourage you to look at the Excel sheet for other roads that they wanted to talk about. It was already on the 2017 blueprint, and this is one of the common threads that I will bring up later. Freemanville Road kept coming up over and over and over and over again in that survey. Very common. Why don't we have bike lanes on Freemanville yet? We've been talking about it for 10 years. A sentiment like that. Freemanville Road is a need, but it's not a simple solution. The biking community very much wants facilities on Freemanville. From a staff perspective and a cost, we're not sure that bike lanes on Freemanville is the best solution. One of the biggest, from my perspective, biggest problems on Freemanville is the speed. And will be putting bike lanes on Freemanville help or hurt that? Usually, if you provide a wider road, you're going to see speeds go up. And if speeds are going up, do you want bicycles in the road in a 4-foot bike lane like you would see in Roswell Alpharetta? Or is the more appropriate solution for Milton a wide trail off the road that is available for bikes that is wide enough that a bike can enjoy it along with the other users of the trail. We're going to have to dive into that more. That's not an easy answer. But again, Freemanville Road came up a lot. Should trails inside the Crabapple Deerfield areas be concrete and otherwise be asphalt or gravel? Brian, this was our conversation for the past couple of years. You'll see 70% agreed with us that the idea of concrete in Crabapple and Deerfield and other surfaces outside those in the more rural areas makes sense. Next question, would a trail made out of concrete negatively affect your enjoyment or utilization of the trail? 85% said no. That surprised me a little bit. Very same response to the next question. Would a trail made out of asphalt negatively impact your enjoyment or utilization of the trail? 86% said no. The next question, would a trail that made out of gravel negatively impact your enjoyment and utilization of the trail? And we had 55, a much higher yes response to that than previously. Something that we need to be concerned about, something from engineering, public works, and I want to try and focus this more on who are the users of the trail. Can we provide multiple opportunities for multiple users so the walkers and horses aren't on the same trail as the bicycles and golf carts? I think that's the solution to here, because predominantly, if you look in the survey, the concern from the gravel surface was the bikers and the golf carts, which are, believe it or not, golf carts are becoming more popular in some of the, I was surprised. There's a subdivision north of the city, north of Birmingham Road, that was calling us the other day about asking for golf cart warning signs in their subdivision. So it's not just a Crabapple thing. It's becoming more popular.
Because that's what one of the things I was wondering.
We need to be aware of. I wasn't able to summarize this one. Again, this was difficult to kind of put in a graph, but I would encourage you to look at the Excel sheet. If choice of trail and material impacts your preference, we just asked basically a why question. And if there's anything else they like to add, I wanted to just read some of the open responses to question L real quickly. And I'm just reading this word for word from what people wrote down. Put in trails under power lines. There's a path from Hopewell, Thompson, Francis to 9 that would be a great bike path. I need to get Crooked Creek to buy in, but it would add value to the homes. And once people figure it out, they would support it. Putting trails over sewer or water lines, putting a trail over the water right-of-way that goes from Bethany Road to the high school. This right-of-way is between the Publix and Cambridge. People could use this to get to the games and stay off the roads. Whereas I support, next comment. Whereas I support addition to proposed trails, I would definitely rethink my support if it would significantly change current speed limits. If the proposals came with lowered speed limits, you would get widespread support for these trails. Note from staff, want to make sure you're aware of the facts. Speed limits for a hot discussion everywhere. Speeding is becoming a worse problem every day. There may be opportunities to look at speed limit reductions on roads after we build the trail if it's being used. There's absolutely no way we're going to be able to get a speed limit reduction just because we build a trail. It's going to take use and it's going to take time. It's not an instant, we're immediately going to be able to lower the speed limit on Freemanville to 35 because we built a trail. That's not going to happen. There's a lot of reasons why, and I won't bore you with all that. Love the idea. At some point, there should be some level of guidance on how golf carts use these paths. No issue with being present, but you don't want paths to turn into golf cart superhighways. Our local gravel roads are favorite places for pedestrians to walk during pleasant weather. Many people can be found on the ones that interact with Freemanville. What they all have in common is very little traffic. Please take a cue from nature, find roads that do not have an outlet and make them more accessible for pedestrians instead of trying to place a trail on every road with significant volume. Who is going to maintain these trails since it runs along our property? Who is going to clean up the trash thrown in our yard? Thank you for making this great improvement to our community. Will there be lighting? Lighting is a huge issue. that is a difficult one to answer, that Public Works is very aware of, that we're going to need to talk about just as a community, as a board with our council. There are some folks that are very passionate that if you build a trail, it needs to come with lighting, because otherwise, especially in the wintertime, past 6 o'clock, people won't use it because they won't feel safe. But as soon as you introduce lighting, there's another negative side of lighting, with lighting in front yards, lighting in windows, lighting being associated with a little bit more of an urban atmosphere. Go look at Rucker Road and the amount of lights that Alpharetta put down there, and some of the lights that we put on our upper section of Cherokee. There's a needle that we're going to have to thread to consider lighting maybe in locations, but not go to the level of building, they call it a runway, like Alpharetta's Rucker Road.
But I think, in speaking from my experience on Wood Road, the sign, it says park rules, and it's from dusk to dawn. And really, people shouldn't be out there. And for the city, I would be a little reluctant to promote use after dark. People get hurt, they twist their ankle, and then all of a sudden they're going to sue the city and stuff. Plus, too, I think if you're a homeowner on those roads, you know, during the day, great, you know, but all of a sudden you see people walking out there at night, then so I would be very against lighting on any of that.
I generally agree, and I think that's probably where the sentiment's going to be, especially for the homeowners. If we look at something on a road, I would expect most of the homeowners on that road will be against it.
And plus preserving the night sky.
Well, I would think the only lighting that would maybe be helpful would be the sign for the trail. That way, you know, oh, there's a light, there's a sign, we're closed.
I mean, I kind of agree with you on like a dusk till dawn. You know, we don't live in the middle of a metropolitan city with 3.5 million people, right? Where you've got street lights and everything. I mean, we're out in horse country.
Expect that to be a question just as we move forward. It's one of those safety concerns that just always seems to pop up. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Following the road closely does not lend itself to a peaceful hike or stroll through nature, and is often not safe for dogs, kids, and bikes. I like the idea of connecting a trail to Lackey Road and the Loch Piney Preserve, but do not feel there is any benefit for Milton residents for it to extend into Cherokee. Do not put a trail in someone's backyard without their approval. The sentiment of that is really important for you to understand as a committee, and that's the most negative concern that we'll hear as we start building trails around the city. Public works projects are always controversial because we're always impacting somebody's front yard. It's almost impossible for us to not have to purchase land or an easement to build things, because we're in a predominantly built out city at this point, and we're retrofitting instead of having the infrastructure in place when the people move in. So that's a important discussion that, again, as a board, you need to understand that that's predominantly where we're going to get some negative feedback and some pushback. The trails that we all, New Providence, the example of, I'm going to go back to the map. Segment E, that extension on New Providence to connect from the roundabout at Birmingham over to Freemanville. Brian, that's the extension of the trail that we like so much on New Providence, the asphalt one that's off the road. Would that be used as a connection on New Providence all the way over to Summit Hill and get usage immediately? Absolutely, yes. But the people that are probably going to be strongly against it are the folks that have backyards that front New Providence in those couple of new subdivisions that will then have people walking through their backyards, even though it's technically not their backyards, it's right of way. But there's going to be, it's not going to be all 100% yes. There's going to be folks almost on any segment that we look at here that will be directly impacted, that we're going to have to tastefully, respectfully try and work with and meet the intent of the project while respecting their privacy and respecting their land and trying to navigate all of that.
And based on the survey results, that was the number one, that section number E.
And we still had
Oh,
four
wait,
people.
sorry.
And we
No,
still
that's
had,
four
we had
people,
41 support it, and we still had 4 people that were against
And
it.
those are probably
4 of
homes.
140, and those were very likely those homes, yes.
But to Suzanne's point, when she began this evening's discussion, was about, gosh, making this look beautiful. And so that would be a great opportunity to, give it a little zhuzh and, and make them feel like, okay, gosh, that has increased my property value, and this is a good thing.
I've got 3 more, and then I'll be quiet and I'll listen to this discussion. This is a huge privacy, safety, wildlife, view destruction, sound intrusion. This will significantly negatively affect my home value and my well-being. There are plenty of other walkways around the city. I'm not sure why the city feels the need to put trails everywhere. Most homeowners would not support foot traffic in front of their house. I feel safety is an issue on some roads, and it is not necessary to introduce more foot traffic where it currently doesn't exist. And lastly, we are surrounded by cities with great running and biking options. For example, Roswell, Johns Creek, Suwanee. Partner with them to learn best practices, extend existing sidewalks, and connect our sidewalk islands. Make any path you build bicycle friendly. If you won't build bike lanes, then at least allow the bikes to ride on the sidewalk. Keep up the good work. I wanted to end on that, and I typically throw this in just as an education component whenever we talk about bikes and sidewalks. Technically, state of Georgia law prevents adults from riding a bike on a sidewalk. It's actually a state law. It doesn't get enforced, but the reason why we consider building trails of typically 10 foot wide or larger, is because state law treats those wider sidewalks and trails differently than a normal 5 foot sidewalk. Legally, the only people that should be riding a bike on a 5 foot sidewalk are a family with small children. If you're an adult, the state motor vehicle laws treat you as a motor vehicle that should be in the road, and technically you're breaking the law if you're an adult on a sidewalk.
So this is something that I think, like, you told me this when I first joined MTAC, right? And that was brand new news to me. You could be I can't ride a bike on a sidewalk by myself, but if I'm with my 2 kids, I can, right? And that's Georgia law. And then understanding the difference in width all of a sudden allows an opportunity to utilize it differently. I think that's important for like residents as we're going through building out a trail system to understand, right? What is the difference between a 6 foot sidewalk and a 10 foot sidewalk, or whatever, like the width is, right? And I think, if we ever do put up, at one of the events, a tent, like, we should have some clarification around why we're proposing what we're proposing and at what, width and all of that because of X, Y, and Z. Because I think when you say that, it all of a sudden makes a lot more sense, right? But I mean, I ride bikes a lot, and I can assure you that nobody knows or cares about the 3 foot rule when they're passing cyclists on the road. And that's for a different discussion on a different day. But I think at least making people aware of certain decisions are made because of this also will help get the support.
I literally just had a discussion with Phil before the meeting started. We were talking about commuting. I live about 2 miles from here, just over the border, past Publix into Roswell. Could I bike here to work? Sure. I'd be biking in the road because I don't have this consistent sidewalk or trail. And honestly, I would feel more comfortable with my biking expertise and knowledge. I would rather be walking in the grass than biking on 140 or Crabapple Road to get here to City Hall. So it's personal preference. We have a ways to go when it comes to cars respecting bikes. Whenever we talk about it on social media and respecting bike laws, one of the very common complaints that we immediately get from the drivers, because the drivers outnumber the bicycles, the drivers will consistently bring up, well, I see train of bicycles 20 foot long blowing through stop signs and not obeying the rules of the road and driving 5 wide and these things that you very rarely see. But there's just kind of that battle between the car that gets held up by the bike that's enjoying the road and because he doesn't have another option and trying to be safe. It's a difficult topic.
What's the city's stance on golf carts? I don't know it.
So this is a long answer. I apologize. The city code has taken in the state law when it comes to personal transportation vehicles, PTVs, otherwise known as golf carts. So we treat golf carts the same way the state law does, which means golf carts are allowed in the road on any road that's 25 miles an hour or below. You can legally use your golf cart to leave your driveway in your subdivision, typically drive around your subdivision, very rarely leave your subdivision because typically the major road's not going to be at 25. So you could use your golf cart to drive to your neighbor's house. If you lived in White Columns, you could use your golf cart to drive to the golf course. Golf carts are also allowed on sidewalks that are 10 foot wider or more, with a acknowledgement from the city council that legislatively would say and enact this trail can accept golf carts. We don't currently have any of those, but there's been a lot of discussion as we start expanding our trail network and golf carts can become more popular with council to eventually get to that stage, but we're currently just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, you said what I thought you would say, and that I agree with you. I mean, wider trails is great. I'm a runner too. But the minute you put that 10-foot trail in there, and I've seen all these golf cart places opening up around here, like, are we going to start encouraging this to be like a golf cart community? And all of a sudden you're dodging golf carts as you try to get around. And I think we need to really think about that.
It's a difficult exercise to brand our facilities and increase use and want them to be popular, but not to get them so popular that it's turning into the Beltline and turning into some sections of the Big Creek Green and the Alpha Loop, where it's literally too congested for you to enjoy whichever mode of travel that you're choosing. There are people that are avoiding the Beltline just because it's too popular, and that will happen even more if they do the transit and the components over there. It's a constantly changing dynamic. I'm not going to read everything on the screen. These were some more takeaways just as I reviewed the survey results, some themes that kept coming up consistently. The first one to me is important, and I did want to say on our map, there were some details and some segments where we clearly showed the line on one side of the road versus the other, because we felt it was important to show it on one side or the other, especially if it was connecting to other lines. I do want to make sure you realize, and this was some concerns from some residents that Sarah and I agree with. If we're advancing any of these segments into the future and we hire an engineering firm and we start looking at concepts and designing things, we are not going to necessarily take for a locked in position that the trail will be on that side of the road. There may be some opportunities, less impacts to front yards of homes, less terrain, less hills, more available right of way. There could be a number of things that when we look into the details on any of these segments may shift that trail from one side of the road to the other and introduce the need for us to, and we're going to do this anyway, look at where those logical crossings are in between our start to end point and making sure that we are providing the connections and those crosswalks from the major destinations, the large subdivision that is in the middle of the segment, to make sure that they have a safe way to get across from their entrance if the trail happened to be on the other side of the road.
So you wanted from us, maybe at either the end of this meeting or at the next meeting, for us to prioritize, or what did you want from us?
So at some point, I'd like a motion to say we don't want to make any changes this map.
Okay.
Or if you do want to make changes, I'd like a motion to say what those changes are. Once you're confident that this is that A through J are what you want to propose as additions to the 2017 blueprint map. It will take Sarah and I several months to walk that through the council adoption and codification process. So whenever you're ready, if that's tonight, if that's March, if that's May, that's going to be the wrapping up of the blueprint map.
I make a motion, the map stays.
I second that.
Second. Do we have a copy? Do we have a map that shows existing trails?
That's a lot of the blue on here.
I can provide you
Well, a
that.
lot of the blue on here is not.
A lot of the blue on here is not built.
Yeah.
That's similar to the layered discussion that we were talking about before with Suzanne. Let me see what we currently have, and I'll try to provide that to you, probably not tomorrow, probably next week.
Because to that point, and then the comment that was on the previous page about why are you expanding when there's so much from the 2017 map that hasn't been done? And to your point, I think the next step would be for us to prioritize. Like, if this is the map we're keeping.
Finish, yeah.
That was one of the most, if you look at that Excel sheet, that was one of the most common themes that came across was, but you haven't done anything on Freemanville yet.
Yeah.
So why are we talking about segment G and segment F and segment A when we've been talking about Freemanville for 10 years, 10 plus years? When we do go to prioritize, I don't want to prioritize just A through J. I want to prioritize the whole map because there may be some logical connections, reducing sidewalk islands, potentially, hopefully easy and cheap ways to either provide a loop like maybe I and J do, or the loop that E would make. There may be some other blue line options that would accomplish the same thing.
That's why I think we just need, even if it's on this map in a different color, what's currently existing as of today.
Yeah.
And then it's going to help us, have an understanding on where we could prioritize and,
Well, so
this
two
looks
next-
great right now, but if 50% of it's not completed, then it's really hard to determine like what makes the most
Correct.
sense to start with.
And that's a layered map you were talking about initially, right? That would help.
Oh, but so motion to adopt the map, and I think you seconded it. So do we want to vote on adopting the map? Prioritization's a little different. Prioritization, we can do like the trail prioritization plan where we break it down, okay, for first year, second year, third year.
Yes.
Or-
I haven't thought much about how prioritization is going to work. We could follow a similar model to what
But I
the
think for the
prioritization
purpose
plan
of
looked at.
tonight, if we approve the map, which, and I know this is first time you've seen it and stuff, so it's new, but we spent a lot of time on it and stuff. And so just trying to get that one over the goal post so that they can begin the process to lay it out for council and stuff.
You guys good with voting to approve? Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
I really wanna
opposed?
add- I really want to add.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I really want to add Taylor Road, this loop right here, but I do understand you guys have put so much time into it. I want to move forward, but it'd be nice to have the option to make some more additions at some point.
Okay.
So,
Is that possible?
Yeah,
Or-
so
or
could we
once-
adopt
Once
it?
that we adopt and say yes to this?
You
that's
could
it.
make a motion to adopt the map with the addition of a segment on Taylor Road from Batesville to 372, if that's what you want to do.
Birmingham Highway.
Okay, can you show where that is?
So if you can see my cursor?
Yep.
So
Right there.
Keisha, help me.
That's it. You're on it.
Taylor Road intersection with Batesville, right
Mhm.
where the cursor is to the intersection of 372 up here with, is it Tullamore near the subdivision where the curve is in 372. I expect the first question is what sidewalks do we have out there? I don't know what we currently have out there.
Not much.
right
I'm on it
now,
every
so
day.
I
Yeah, not much, but
don't
there's a
know if,
lot of traffic.
what I don't know is would that be a trail along the entire stretch from Batesville all the way to 372? Or are there some segments out there already existing that we can expand onto? Based on what you just said, it's probably the entire segment. And do you have you're more familiar with Taylor Road than I do. Is there a side of the road that would make more sense than the other? No.
Well, there's mailboxes only on one side. That's how kind of old the road is.
Okay.
No, it's just choppy. The
Norm-
sidewalks.
Normally, we would err towards the side with less mailboxes and less driveways.
Okay, so then that'd be the left side because the mailboxes are only on the right.
So the left side going up here.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So the
But that
motion would
create
look,
another loop.
sorry?
That would create another loop over
Absolutely.
here.
So the motion would be adopting the map on the screen as submitted with the survey with one change. The change would be adding another pink line on Taylor Road on the west side of the road from Batesville to 372.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, aye. I don't know if I said aye.
So
Thank you.
on the subject of voting, I probably talked to you about this last time. At some point in the future, maybe March, maybe May, we will be introducing electronic voting. If any of you have
Oh.
followed council meetings, this is a pretty new rollout for council, started in January. We're not quite yet ready to roll out to the boards and committees, but that's coming soon.
Alrighty.
It's a very similar, very easy, simple process. You'll be able to see your votes on the screen, very transparent, similar to the process that Alpharetta, if any of you have attended their council meetings, they've had it for a number of years.
All right, so this map is approved.
So this map is, from your perspective,
Yay.
this map is done. The work transitions, yes, this was a big lift. This is something we've been talking about for a long time.
Yeah.
This transitions to Sarah and I. We will begin crafting the language we need, trying to get it on agenda item on our calendar. We will be updating you on what that process looks like, what council meetings they're going to. I would encourage you, once we get that kind of outline and calendar, that's a perfect opportunity for each of you to talk with your respective council members that appointed you and make sure they don't have any questions and make sure they understand how much effort you put into this. And I would also encourage you, if you're free on that Monday evening when we're talking about it, to show your support and be there. Obviously, Sarah and I will be there to answer questions, but there could be questions for you as the Trails Committee that would be better answered by you than us.
And what day is that? Do you know?
We don't know
You don't
yet.
have it.
We're going to
Okay.
start looking at what that looks like.
Alrighty.
I'm hoping in the next 2 to 3 months.
So, quick question. So back to the prioritization now that it's approved, are we allowed as a committee to meet offline, and chat through this?
So
People.
the rule on that is you're treated the same way as our council members and our mayor. So in order to be doing Trails Committee work offline outside here on a phone call or a Teams call or a meeting at someone's house, as long as it's 3 or less, you can do whatever you want. As soon as you have 4 people in the room, it's technically a quorum. So technically, if I had 4 people in the room, it would require an agenda. It would require a notification to the public that you're meeting as a quorum of the Trails Committee.
But I mean, all we have to do is just, if we decided to all get together, just check those boxes if we could still meet, right? It doesn't have
If
to
you
be
would
like
like to schedule something where you all get together on a weekend or during the day and your calendars line up and you want me to go through the effort of advertising that and making sure you're covered,
Here and
you can have the office over here. We have plenty of space for you at City Hall to do that whenever you want. Yeah, that's completely available. I just
I mean, I
know
think it would be
you're all
important.
busy with your professional lives. I get it.
I just like when as the newest member joining, it was kind of like, other than meeting John, it would be nice to be able to talk and have conversations. But when you told me that I can't meet with anyone,
You are
beyond 3
free to
people.
meet as a committee and have a beer at Old Blind Dog. Just make sure you're having it as a social fun atmosphere and not conducting business as a board. That's the same way we treat our council members. That's state sunshine laws. Any other questions? I'm going to turn off the mics and we can adjourn.
Thank you, Rob. I know it's a lot of
Yes.
work.
Yeah,
That was a
thank you so
lot.
much.
That
Great
was
job.
that was
Great
probably our
job.
longest meeting
Yeah.
ever.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
I have a motion by Phil, second.
I'll
Second.
Okay, second by Keisha. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Yay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will,
We
I,
did.
Yeah, so gosh, years ago, we did